In the west, and it could turn very wet across northwest Scotland by the end of Sunday. Also quite windy here on Sunday, and some gusty winds over northern England too, so be aware of that. But despite the wind and the cloud, it will be a lot milder on Sunday.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight,
British people have paid £130,000 to the government since you came into power for offices to be redecorated. £43,000 has gone to the Net Zero Department, DESNZ. What's it paid for, Mr Miliband?
Well, I have no idea, Nick.
Ed Miliband does not know where £43,000 of your money has gone.
Rachel Kite is an esteemed person who is recognised for her leadership, and all they can do is fling around baseless allegations.
He can't really explain why he gave a job to a woman involved with a company that donated £4 million to Labour and £99,000 to himself.
Look, with hindsight, I think we can say, looking back on the events of 2013, that the hesitation of this country and the United States create a vacuum that Russia moved into and kept Assad in power for much longer.
And now his colleague, the Health Secretary, has turned on him.
The message from government is, we've got to build this energy.
And he's decided to plough ahead with wall-to-wall wind farms in the countryside. Look, I think Miliband's days might be numbered. Also tonight...
So today I'm announcing £84 million of new funding for projects across Africa and the Middle East.
Yeah, well, Labour's tanked the economy, but...
The UK intends to vote in favour of the resolution in support of UNRWA.
Yeah, well, they tanked the economy, but they are currently in Africa trying to grow the economy over there. And what you just heard was David Lammy giving millions to the UN agency accused of helping Hamas. Look, shouldn't Labour just focus on helping people in Britain? Also tonight...
On a positive note, I want to recognise and praise the incredible work going on in local churches and communities across the country to welcome the stranger, as we strive towards better refugee integration in principles and in practice.
Well, the candidates for the new Archbishop of Canterbury are named. One of them took the knee, another one is accused of a sex abuse cover-up. It is a rogues gallery, plus...
I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time.
And now Prince Andrew is linked to a Chinese spy. First Epstein, now this. I think there's something very weird going on here. I'm going to speak to Tom Tugendhat about that. My panel this evening are the ex-Tory MP Anna Firth, the director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity Stephen Wolfe, and the former Labour Party advisor Matthew Torbet. Oh, and this is a little bit nuts, OK? So there's a man tearing down Christmas lights all over the place. We need your help to catch the Suffolk Scrooge. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Labour's tanking the economy while sending your money to Malawi. Next.
Good evening, I'm Will Hollis with your top stories at 9 o'clock. Nothing of a sensitive nature was discussed between the Duke of York and a suspected Chinese spy, according to the Duke's office. A statement says the Duke of York followed advice from His Majesty's government and ceased all contact with the individual after concerns were raised. The man, known only as H6, was said to be a close confidant of the Prince and reportedly invited to the Duke's birthday. In other news, the Prime Minister has said the world should be cautious about what comes next in Syria. Speaking during a virtual meeting of the G7, Sir Keir Starmer told allies, while welcoming the Syrian regime's collapse, a new government should be credible and inclusive for all Syrians. For viewers watching on television, these pictures are from Damascus, where Syrians are celebrating the first Friday night since the collapse of the regime. Back to the UK, the economy shrank for the second month in a row in October as concerns about the budget continue to weigh on confidence. The Office for National Statistics said output fell 0.1% following the 0.1% decline recorded for the previous month. The figures showed zero growth in powerhouse services sectors, with manufacturing and construction declining at a pace of 0.6% and 0.4% respectively. The ONS says activity had stalled or declined, with pubs, restaurants and retail among sectors reporting weak months. Chancellor Rachel Reeves said she was disappointed by the data. Remaining with the government has unveiled a Clean Power Action Plan to decarbonise the electricity grid by 2030. Number 10 claims the move will protect households from any future energy spikes, boost growth and tackle the climate crisis. Meanwhile, some government-backed researchers have warned Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change Ed Miliband's plans could actually increase energy bills. Well, earlier, GB News spoke to the Energy Minister, Michael Shanks.
Yes, reforming the planning system to make sure we build things faster than we are at the moment is important, but we're not removing the right of communities to have a voice in that process. What we're saying is at the moment the planning process is often just drown in paperwork for years and years, which doesn't help communities but also doesn't get really essential infrastructure built.
The widow of former England rugby player Tom Voice says she's overwhelmed by the support received since he went missing. His wife, Anna, said absolutely devastated and heartbroken doesn't even describe how we feel. The 43-year-old's body was recovered yesterday and his identity confirmed after a 5-day search of the River Ann. The player's car was swept away while trying to cross Aberwick Ford in Northumberland during Storm Dara. And your last one for now. Police are asking the public for help after vandals targeted Christmas decorations in East Anglia. Captured on CCTV, at least 5 incidents of people cutting wires on Christmas lights have been reported. Police say the mindless vandalism by the so-called Suffolk Scrooge has brought hurt and financial costs to young and old in the area. Well, those are your latest headlines for now at 9 o'clock. Let's get you back to Patrick Christys.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Today it was revealed that Britain is on the brink of recession. The economy shrank again. Just remember that we had net migration of nearly 1 million people, and yet Britain got poorer. As the news of our imminent recession broke, what were Labour up to? Well, we had Annalise Dodds off to drive growth in Malawi and Zambia. How about a bit of growth here, Minister? She put this out. We're going to pay for 7.5 million children in Malawi to have a better education. Right here at home, we've got schools building porter cabin villages after they had to evacuate because the school was built using crumbling concrete. And children in Surrey might have to be homeschooled now because Labour priced their parents out of private schools and the state sector can't cope. Maybe we could help our own kids, Minister. But it's par for the course for Labour. Starmer announced £84 million in additional foreign aid almost as soon as he became PM. Your energy bills are going up again and pensioners are freezing to death in their own homes. But Labour is going to spend £11.6 billion abroad in overseas climate aid. This comes after eco-fanatic Ed Miliband literally celebrated the loss of jobs in Port Talbot after we shut our last coke plant. Labour has just sent 11 million quid to Syria. They then decided not to remove the new Syrian regime from our terror watch list. So they have just handed 11 million quid to terrorists, haven't they? We calculated that around 36,000 pensioners could have been kept warm this winter had Labour chosen to prioritise them instead. Talking of giving money to terrorists, David Lammy has just announced 13 million quid is being sent to UNRWA. UNRWA had to fire 9 staff in August after an internal probe found that they may have been involved in the Hamas terror attacks on Israel. Starmer sent 4.75 million quid to Italy to help them tackle the migrant crisis, yet he refuses to take us out of the ECHR to help deport foreign criminals from Britain. Labour has committed to sending £3 billion a year every single year, for as long as it takes, to Zelensky in Ukraine. Meanwhile, they're set to make cuts to our own armed forces. Rachel Reeves decided to hammer British farmers with a death tax in a bid to raise around 500 million quid a year. She also decided to give around £500 million to foreign farmers so we can help them out instead. Illegal immigrants are now being housed in disused care homes. Again, could we not be looking after our own a bit more here? Oh, and Starmer, yeah, there he is. He decided to start discussions about reparations to Commonwealth countries that could cost us billions of pounds. Look, my point is this. Our economy is tanking. People feel poorer. A recession is looming. We have people in dire need from cradle to grave in this country. And all this Labour government cares about is sending money abroad and growing other people's economies. Let's get the thoughts of my panel. We've got former Conservative MP Anna Firth. We've also got the Director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe. And, of course, we've got the former Labour Party advisor, Matthew Torbett. And I'll start with you. Little bit tone deaf, I think, to be helping to grow the economies of Malawi and Zambia at the moment.
It's completely and utterly outrageous. I mean, this is just typical, isn't it, of a government headed up by a Prime Minister who has openly said he prefers to be in Davos. You know, this government is more concerned about spending money all over the place in foreign countries. I mean, the particular outrage here is that over a quarter of under fives in some deprived areas of Great Britain are not reaching the educational standards that they need to be, and yet we have got money to be educating children in Malawi. It's completely outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, how can they actually justify that, seriously? So on the day our economy shrunk again, looming recession, children in the Surrey area saying that they're basically going to have to be homeschooled because they can't go to private school anymore because the parents can't afford it, and there is, shock horror, no space in the state sector, crumbling schools left, right and centre. You know, I mean, class size is way above the 30 mark, and there we are, out there in Malawi, doing the old saviour bit.
I'm finding it hard to understand what is the logic about it. Initially, one gets the argument that they say this is to help soft power of government in these particular countries. But then you look at the numbers that the Labour Party are using. What did you just say, 11 million to Syria? To whom? To what? Well, yeah. When the European Union has spent 40.5 billion euros since the pandemic started. Which power is more powerful at that amount of money? And secondly, when you look at the way that you influence these countries, we know if you look at history, that this way of paying money to foreign countries actually has distorting effects. The food programme in the 1950s to the 60s destroyed the agricultural markets in Pakistan and India by flooding them with cheap agricultural projects. It creates disillusionment in countries and a reliance on foreign entities. How many ambassadors from Nigeria and other countries have come together and said, we don't want your money anymore, because it creates this distorting effect. It seems to me that this is either about influencing people who are parts of the NGOs and organisations that are well connected with the Labour Party, but nothing to do with sense when we should be looking after our own.
Yeah, Matthew, we've got a lot of issues right here in this country. Do you think that Labour really should be just focusing on that? I mean, apart from train drivers, who have Labour actually helped in Britain since coming to power?
I don't know. If you ask people that will be affected by the employment bill, people are going to have wages going up, and hopefully you know, their practices in their workplaces will be affected in a positive way. I think the argument of you could heat pensioners at Christmas time rather than doing this, I think you can do both. I think whilst interest rates are low, you could probably borrow to invest, and Rachel Reeves infuriates me by not doing that. To give them a little bit of leeway. They've inherited sort of a car crashing of economy after 14 years, and people are feeling worse off than ever, it's true. I think if you look at the numbers, though, specifically on the Malawi case where Annalise Dodds was announcing funding, it's 40 million over 5 years. This is, you know, GDP that we have, which is 2.5 trillion. You know, this is a drop in the ocean. And the thing is, Stephen is right, I think, with regards to the distorting effect, but I think this is also a bit of a relic of being part of the Commonwealth and Empire. We sort of have half a foot in because Malawi are part of the British Commonwealth, and if we don't do anything, China are sweeping up half of... Let me just finish. Let me just finish, Anna. China are going to sweep up all of Africa, and they're going to be the next superpower we've got to be wary of.
Matthew, how can it be justified to be spending over £500 million helping foreign farmers in Africa while taking away £500 million from our own farmers right here? Surely our own national food security and our own farmers should come first.
I think you can do both. I think... Are we saying the Conservative government over 14 years never... Let me just finish. Let me finish. Are we saying the Conservative government never gave money in international aid?
No, we're not. But Boris Johnson reduced the percentage that
by 0.2%.
Yes, but going in the right direction, whereas your manifesto, of course, is due to put it up again. Back to... Is that your position, that we should be spending more, which is what, indeed, you've stood on as a manifesto?
Yeah, I think if you look at the money that is being given in climate aid, if we don't take action against global climate change, you think immigration is the problem now? Wait till you've got climate refugees when places like Barbados are underwater and whatever else.
Looking at the numbers, the way that we define climate refugees, I'd have a huge conversation about that. But my concern about it is that you're talking about borrowing more. There was the big problem, actually, which I did have with the Conservative governments. They borrowed huge sums during the period of time that they were in power. By adding that problem, you're simply adding huge amounts of debt. And of course you have the argument that said countries can borrow, but we're taxing more. And you see today the numbers on recession and lowering GDP. That's the impact of increasing taxation on people, because we have to pay for the debt that we've borrowed more. So if you're going to borrow more, you're going to increase taxes, which will lead to further recession. Just you need to bring it home. You need to bring the cash into our country.
Is it also this idea that we keep being told that we're skin? and we are skint as a country, but we're not skint if Malawi needs a few quid. We're not skint if £11.6 billion worth of climate change funding needs to be found. We're not skint if you're Zelensky and you can get £3 billion a year indefinitely for as long as possible. You know, all of this stuff. We appear to be able to find the money for other people, but not us.
But Matthew, don't you think it is completely and utterly ludicrous that we are giving money to countries that are wealthier than we are? Some of our foreign aid, which your government is allowing to go out of the door, is going to China.
I think there's an issue.
We're funding countries which are wealthier than we are. This is reverse Robin Hood. It's madness.
So I think there is an issue with foreign aid. I think it's never best spent by, you know, in many cases, corrupt politicians in countries that, you know, need drastic overhaul. I suppose the moral question, therefore, is do you just leave them in the pocket of these dictators, or do you try and have some sort of soft power effect before other countries bigger than us do?
Countries I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that we are funding a women's opera group in Shanghai. We are funding other Chinese cities. We are funding a cycle route in Mexico. There is no reason whatsoever that our British money, when our pensioners are freezing cold, when our farmers are on the brink, that our money should be going to these countries.
My favourite one of those
nonsense.
That catalogue of bonkers foreign aid investments, though, which was to Yagna, the Ethiopian Spice Girls group, where we gave them a couple of million quid. I mean, all right, I imagine, you know, so it's not helping anyone here in Britain. It's also not helping starving people in Ethiopia who now have to listen to Yagna all the time as they forage around for food. You know, it's not good. Look, my overall point is this: what the political angle of it for Labour. On the day that you've got, you know, the poor economic news, they know they're under the cosh. They're under the cosh at the moment, left, right and centre, when it comes to farmers and pensions and all of that stuff. I just think to be out there advertising the good that you're doing for the people of Malawi, they don't vote for you in Malawi. They don't vote for you. Why are you not doing a little bit more here? But, hey, there we go. Anyway, right, a lively start. And, yes, here we go. Yet another giveaway, but this time we're the ones doing it. So, time now for our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway this year. Your chance to win 50 grand in tax-free cash. Here's how you can make that money. Still to come, here we are. Still to come. Does the next Archbishop of Canterbury need to break up the old boys club and have a radical overhaul? That's what the Bishop of Newcastle, who called for Justin Welby to resign, thinks. I've got a rogues gallery of the top picks to be the next Archbishop of Canterbury. Seriously, it's some of these people insane. But up next, David Lammy has announced that we are giving UNRWA an extra £13 million, despite the Palestinian aid agency being accused of deploying terrorists on October the 7th. Should we be giving them any money? We're debating that in our head-to-head. It's next. Stay tuned.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
So maybe people are opting for the more traditional ways of meeting people.
Organically.
Meeting organically.
It's the only way to actually... Well, I know some people have
it's worked very well for some people. I mean, I personally think that doing things more organically is probably going to be better, or is more to my taste. But it has worked well for lots of people.
So I absolutely agree. There's a very interesting young woman, she's about 22, who writes on this and has a podcast called Freya India.
And she talks about this dating industry, and she said all she ever wanted to do as a teenager was go down the pub and meet a man and fall in love. And the dating apps just don't do that. And she said they've become so, you know, it's just literally people looking for sex. You know, we need to get back to traditional ways of meeting face to face, but we also need to stop toxifying it. You know, a man flirting with a woman is not toxic. Men and women have done this for years. Obviously, you know, we need to know about boundaries, but we also need to allow men and women to do what comes naturally.
I think it's also about spontaneity in society. It's much harder to, you know, just randomly go out in an evening in London and not know what you're doing and have a good time than it was, I think, you know, 15 years ago or so.
Yeah,
and if you don't have spontaneity in your life in general terms, then that spontaneous meeting with someone is less likely to happen.
I think it's also where you are, because I was just thinking, as you said, that London, going out to try and meet someone in London is one thing. If you live in a small town and you go down your local pub, there's probably you're more likely to meet someone that you get to know over a period of time. And
but this is also why we need to support our pubs and our hospitality areas, because they are important social integrators. They really are.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Should we really be giving millions and millions of pounds to a group that was accused of supporting Hamas? It's time now for our head-to-head. All right, so remarkably, David Lammy has declared that we're providing £13 million in additional support to UNRWA following the UN General Assembly vote to demand that Israel respect the mandate of the Palestinian Aid Agency. So the Foreign Secretary said in a tweet that UNRWA is the backbone of humanitarian operations in Gaza, providing support for Palestinian civilians that no other organisation can match. Israel must ensure UNRWA can operate. Now, this funding is announced despite the accusations against UNRWA that it actually employed terrorists on October the 7th, and Israel banning the agency from operating in areas under its control. Now, this is on top of the 21 million quid they've already provided them back in July after David Lammy resumed funding after it was paused by the Tories. It begs the question, should we really be giving more money to an agency that might have been involved in the October 7th attack? I'm joined now by research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, Andrew Fox, a former BBC current affairs producer, John Mayer. Chaps, thank you very much. Andrew, I'll start with you. Should we be giving money to UNRWA, do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, the fact is, to operate in Gaza, you have to be complicit with Hamas, otherwise it doesn't happen. And that means that UNRWA has been irrevocably compromised. The terror tunnels, the computer system was underneath UNRWA headquarters. There's no way they could not have known. 30 buildings at least of UNRWA in Gaza have been found connected to the tunnel system. One of their ex-officials who fundraised for UNRWA wrote a letter saying America is subjugated by the Jewish lobby. The Commissioner General had a meeting with Hamas and Islamic Jihad terror chiefs and told them we're united, no one can separate us. You know, the evidence goes on and on and on. And of course, UNRWA employees took part in the 7th of October terror attacks. The head of 2 teachers' unions in both Gaza and Lebanon have turned out to be senior Hamas commanders. And, you know, this whole thing is utterly subverted, and they're not doing their job. Enough calories are going into Gaza for every single person. Over 3,000 calories a day are going into Gaza, and they're not being distributed. UNRWA just isn't functioning, and it needs to be replaced.
All right, John, I'll let you come back to that. Quite a list there.
I'm sorry to see that Andrew is frozen. I think perhaps he's frozen in time in all of this. UNRWA is a relief agency. 1.4 million people in Gaza are displaced. Israel has bombed Gaza back into the Stone Age. The refugees galore. UNRWA is doing what it says on the tin. It's a relief agency. And yesterday, 159 members of the UN, that's the world body, voted in favour of them continue to get aid and actually called for a ceasefire. So, you know, let's not muck about this. Hamas has been defeated. It's a straw man. The Israelis have got rid of them. Millions have been left stranded as a result of this, and the aid is needed urgently. Does Andrew not want to feed people? Does he not want to give them shelter? You know, it really makes you wonder. So if UNRWA don't do it, who's going to feed them? Who's going to offer them shelter?
Well, let's see what Andrew has to say about that.
We don't know what's happening in Gaza because journalists are not allowed in. So perhaps we go back to Andrew and see if he's unfrozen in time yet.
Okay, Andrew, would you like to come back to that?
Am I unfrozen?
You are unfrozen, yeah.
Good stuff. Well, the key point is here that it doesn't have to be UNRWA. Hamas are not defeated. They are still absolutely hijacking aid convoys. They are still administratively in control of huge amounts of Gaza. And the IDF has not yet come up with a solution to how to solve that. So to say that they're defeated militarily is true, but to say that they are removed from the Gaza Strip is completely and categorically false. And the fact is, there are a variety of UN agencies that are able to do this. UNRWA is only responsible for 15.6% of food donations within the Gaza Strip. And it's a simple fact. People are starving because UNRWA aren't doing their job, because they're utterly compromised and they are not taking armed guards on convoys as they're allowed to, because, frankly, the means of controlling those supplies of food are how Hamas retains their levers of control over the population.
Yeah, John, I mean, look, when it comes to this actual sum of money, which ultimately the British taxpayer is paying, 13 million quid to give to something that has got a really checkered track record there, to say the least. It also comes off the back of us giving 11 million quid to HJS, that group who just, HTS, I should say, the group who just taken over in Syria there, who we're now also not taking off the terror watch list. I mean, it does look a little bit like Labour is quite happy to give a lot of taxpayers' money to terrorists.
If UNRWA don't feed them, who will feed them? Who will give them shelter? Answer that question, Andrew.
Well, there are humanitarian zones set up. There's a UN HCR that could do the job. There are plenty of other programs out there that could do this job, and UNRWA aren't doing it. You know, you've admitted yourself the conditions in Gaza are utterly miserable. People aren't getting fed, and the reason they aren't getting fed is because UNRWA are complicit with Hamas, allowing them to steal food, and thereby allowing them to control the local population in Gaza.
So what would you do to kick UNRWA out? I mean, there's no proof that since October the 7th it's been infiltrated by Hamas. Hamas is a straw man. It doesn't exist. You know,
That's
it's defeated.
How can you say
it's on the
Hamas
ground.
doesn't exist? They've been fighting the IDF for the last month and they've sustained 1,800 casualties. The IDF have been taking them on in great numbers. The simple fact is that the aid distribution.
Why did 159 countries worldwide vote in favour yesterday at the UN?
It doesn't have to be done by UNRWA, and there's clear proof of UNRWA's complicity with Hamas. They found their computer servers, Hamas's computer servers, were underneath UNRWA's headquarters. There is no way they cannot have known that that Hamas were using their power supplies in that way to power their computer servers.
Why did 159 countries vote yesterday to continue to support UNRWA? And indeed to call for a ceasefire.
You'll have to ask each of the 159 countries. I have no idea. There are plenty of countries
only 11
around the
voted
world
against.
There are plenty of countries in the world.
And with respect, John, the question is literally, well, should we have been the 12th country, right? Because just because everybody else does it doesn't mean that we should be doing it as well. And, you know, Andrew's made a pretty strong case there about the links between UNRWA and Hamas. And, you know, it's the British taxpayer who's on the hook for this money. So why should we justify it? You know, you've got poor people over here. Why are we parting with our money to go and send it to a group that may have been complicit in slaughtering Jews?
The world will. If the world expresses a will, they support UNRWA and they want a ceasefire, why is that not respected? Just because the Israeli government says they don't respect it, you know, let us respect. What's the United Nations for?
OK. All right, OK, fair enough. Look, both of you, thank you very much. We are out of time. We could have carried that on, clearly, but thank you so much. That is the research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, Andrew Fox, and the former BBC Current Affairs producer, John Mayer. Chaps, thank you very much. Coming up, private school kids are being priced out of state places after Surrey Council admits that they've run out of capacity. All the while, Labour's Annalise Dodds has declared that we are sending money to Malawi for a better education. But what about the children right here in Surrey? Head teacher of LBS Ascot, Christine Cunniff, joins me in the studio to delve deeper into some of the damage that Labour might be doing to our education system as a whole. But next, does the next Archbishop of Canterbury need to essentially be a woman? That's what the Bishop of Newcastle, who called for Justin Welby to resign, thinks. Reverend Dan Beasley joins me next, and you might be surprised at some of the top nominations to be the next Archbishop of Canterbury. Watch this space.
Evening, welcome to your latest Met Office weather update here on GB News. If you feel like you've not seen the sun all week, brighter skies for many tomorrow. We should see a little bit of blue sky. The sky's likely to be back to grey by Sunday, however, but then it will be milder. We do have a weather front tracking south. That is trying to push away all the cloud, and it's doing so across Scotland and Northern Ireland tonight. That will allow it to turn quite chilly. It's bringing a little bit of rain over northern England, North Wales, patchy rain and drizzle further south, quite murky over the hills as well, misty conditions, but all that cloud again keeping temperatures above freezing in the south, whereas we will see some pockets of frost over northern England and eastern Scotland. A few showers coming in on that brisk wind as well, but generally that cloud will continue to drift southwards. So yes, first thing, still pretty drab over East Anglia and southern England. A little bit of rain here and there, but nothing too heavy. It is going to get brighter. Already though, by 7, 8 o'clock, we'll see breaks in the cloud over Wales, northern England. Fine start for much of Northern Ireland. Just a few showers on the north coast. A few showers filtering in over northern Scotland. A bit of snow mixed in with those, but only really over the tops of the mountains. And then as we go through the day, as I say, many places will see sunny spells. The showers actually tending to fade over North Wales and western Scotland, and the cloud finally breaking up across East Anglia in the southeast. So yes, you should see a bit of sunshine here after what's been a very gloomy week. Meanwhile, it will then turn cloudy and soggy across the far northwest with a breeze picking up here. Temperature-wise, single digits, so still a chilly feel, but with a bit of sunshine. That makes such a difference, and it's certainly looking milder on Sunday. The cloud is back. A grey day for many. Rain and drizzle over hills and around coasts in the west, and it could turn very wet across northwest Scotland by the end of Sunday. Also quite windy here on Sunday, and some gusty winds over northern England too, so be aware of that. But despite the wind and the cloud, it will be a lot milder on Sunday.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. The bishop who called for Justin Welby to resign last month following revelations of apparent child abuse cover-ups in the Church of England has spoken to the Times today to give her view on what needs to happen within the Church of England in order to heal and move forward as they choose a successor to be the next Archbishop of Canterbury. The Right Reverend Helen Ann Hartley, Bishop of Newcastle, said the right person is going to have to be emotionally intelligent enough, resilient enough, and get the support that they need to drive that change. It's significant change that's needed. That means that you want somebody who's going to come in and break up that old boys club and signal that from day one. Right, OK, so let's have a little look, shall we, at who this person might be. Speculation has mounted in the media since Welby's resignation. There's a consensus on who the finalists are. All right, let's have a look. The Bishop of Bath and Wells, the Right Reverend Michael Beasley. He served as the Bishop of Bath and Wells since 2022. Before that, he was the Bishop of Hertford. He practised epidemiology prior to joining the clergy in the late 90s, served as the C of E's COVID task force, taking an active role in Britain's COVID policies. He also promoted COVID vaccination through initiatives alongside UNICEF and the NHS. Bishop Michael voted in favour of blessings for same-sex couples in 2022, and in 2023 was one of the bishop's assistants for the coronation of King Charles III. So basically, in amongst all that, he's a lockdown champion. Next up, the Right Reverend Graham Usher, Bishop of Norwich, an ecologist, the Bishop of Norwich since 2019, lead bishop for the environment. In his greenie role, he called for meat-free Fridays to help net zero, saying that vegetarian food is part of the long-established Christian practice that can help the planet. In February 2020, basically it turned out that its net zero by 2030 goal was going to be led by him, calling for a global climate emergency. It was a crisis for God's creation, a profound injustice. He's a climate activist, basically. Up next, we've got Martin Snow, the Bishop of Leicester, ordained to the priesthood in '96, served as a youth chaplain with the Anglican Diocese of Guinea. He was made a bishop in 2013, becoming Bishop of Leicester in 2016. In May 2016, he was one of 6 bishops reported to be the subject of clergy disciplinary measure complaints owing to their alleged inaction over sexual assault claims. He strongly contested this. Since October 2016, he has sat on the Church of England's National Safeguarding Steering Group, remarkably. In July 2020, Bishop Snow took the knee outside Leicester Cathedral in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. And in October 2023, he spoke at a conference on how interculturalism can be a framework for the Church as it seeks to become more diverse and to repent the injustices it has committed against the global majority of people. Good stuff. Yeah, he also is apparently Justin Welby's top pick for the job. There's the Welby continuation candidate. We've got Dr. Guli Francis Dakani, the Bishop of Chelmsford, the first BAME woman bishop in the C of E, a vocal cheerleader for diversity and multiculturalism. She was born in Iran in 1966, and she fled to the UK after an assassination attempt during the Iranian Revolution. She has spoken in the House of Lords on refugees, highlighting the Church's involvement in, quotes, welcoming the stranger. And in September, she signed a letter arguing that Israel must stop acting as if it's above the law. So make of that what you will. Just finally, Bishop Rose Hudson-Wilkin, the Bishop of Dover. Well, it's more than enough to point out, I think, that this happened.
Archbishop decided to resign, and I must accept that he has come to that decision. Having his resignation or indeed any other resignation is not going to resolve the problem. I do understand that the survivors are saying nothing but a resignation.
Yeah, right. Just to be clear, what she's talking about there is that she appears to be reluctantly accepting that the Archbishop of Canterbury went after not reporting a prolific paedophile to the authorities when he knew about them. So, all right. I'm joined now by the Church of England vicar, Reverend Dan Beasley. Dan, thank you very much. Is that the best they've got?
Well, that's the choice they got at the moment. Usually the Archbishop comes from the House of Bishops. As we know, the House of Bishops, well, if you looked at the Lord Spiritual and the vote on record when the Tory government was in place, was quite voting against the Tory government. The House of Bishops, as we see in the church on the local ground, is not reflective of the people in the pews. You know, there's a real disconnect. And I think one of the things that I've seen since Welby has resigned, which I've never seen before, you know, for many years there were the Anglo-Catholics and the evangelicals. Now with the Prayers of Love and Faith, there was the Conservatives and the Liberals. But since Welby resigned, there's the national church and the local church. And, you know, it's something that I've been learning, and I do a lot of online stuff, that the national church is so far away from the local church. And there feels such a disconnect that whoever becomes the next Archbishop of Canterbury, well, you know, how much did they serve in the local church? How much are they remembered? Because it just feels so disconnected.
It just seemed a little bit silly that Justin Welby was a deeply unpopular man amongst people, and they appeared to be keen to continue his legacy by either hiring, you know, a rampant environmentalist, people who are obsessed with Black Lives Matter, people who are obsessed with welcoming refugees into the country, and people who, in the case of the last individual that we heard from there, you know, actually not really seeming to get the seriousness and the gravity of what he did to resign. It would surely just be a death knell for the Church of England, wouldn't it, Liz?
Yes. You know, as a Christian, I believe that God's shaking up the Church of England. We are split. We are very split. We're split on the Church of England over the prayers of love and faith and the direction we're going. And we'll see that at the General Synod next year in July. You got something called the Alliance in the Church of England that's saying we will set up a de facto province and we will go our own way. Whoever becomes the next Archbishop of Canterbury has got a huge job on their hand, just with all the safeguarding issues going on, with the direction of what it seems the House of Bishops is going through. But you want to know one thing, you know, I'm a local parish priest. I've been a light switch on in our local village a couple of weeks ago. I was in the pub with people, and they're not Christian, but they're saying, Dan, do you know what? We want you Christians just to be who we think you are. You know, we want you to annoy us with about Jesus. We want you to be there for the good of the parish. And they don't see that in the national church. And it really is affecting the local church. So what's happening with the House of Bishops and whoever will be the Archbishop, you know, doesn't really matter at the moment, because we're battling for the Church of England at the local level, and the national church and is very disconnected to the local church, even with non-Christians.
Would you go for
it? You know what my brother said to me? I got two brothers. We went out a couple of years ago, and they said to me, they're not Christians yet. I would say yet. They said to me, Dan, you'll never be a bishop because you believe in the Bible.
Isn't this just bleak, though? And isn't there a parallel between a couple of the stories that I've been talking about earlier tonight, actually, about how the government here that we've got at the moment, elected for by people of this country, you know, given a mandate and a manifesto for the people of this country, appear to be doing a heck of a lot of stuff abroad that don't seem to be directly benefiting a lot of very needy people here. And there seems to be a crossover between that and what's going on in the Church of England as well. These big people with these big global views, and that's OK to an extent, but there are people here right now who are up and down the country, filling the pews week in, week out, handing in at the collection boxes, who just do not feel as though that church is representing them. I feel like we maybe need to localise everything a little bit.
Yeah, and so this is one of the things, I've been seeing, is the power it feels like with the bishops and the diocese, but if you go back historically over the Church of England, the power, you know, in inverted commas, was always in the local church. So, you know, you go back to the COVID, you spoke about COVID, with one of the bishops heading up the COVID task force, and the Archbishop saying, you've got to close your churches. He's got no power to say that, not to the local church, it's the local minister. But a lot of people went with that because that's what they thought, that's what it's become. And we need to reestablish the local parish priest. And, you know, again, in the Church of England, this is where we're suffering. There's not every church has got a parish priest. In fact, some priests, I think the worst case scenario, one's got 32 churches. But even if you've got 6 churches, you can't grow that church. but the local people need a local parish priest.
Exactly, and maybe the focus could be there. That's the thing. Maybe the focus could be on there, starting from that, rebuilding, as opposed to, you know, looking at whether or not we need to have meat-free Fridays because people in certain parts of the world are, you know, undergoing global warming. But look, thank you very much. It was great to have you on, and have a very Merry Christmas as well. If I don't see you before then, that is the Church
I'll
of
see you
England.
in church, Patrick.
I hope so, actually. Church of England Vicar there, Reverend Dan Beasley. OK, right, I've still got loads more coming your way. Look, Ed Miliband is unable to account for £43,000 worth of your money spent allegedly on refurbishing his office. But he can't confirm whether or not his office has been refurbished. He doesn't even know if he's been given a new chair. What's going on here? But next, private school kids are being priced out of state school places after Surrey Council admits that they've run out of capacity. All the while, Labour's Annalise Dodds, well, she's off in Malawi, tossing money around so that they can get a better education. Look, what's going on here? I'll speak to LBS Ascot head teacher Christine Cunniff very shortly. Stay tuned.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
A Tesco store on a Scottish island has defied locals by ignoring pleas to stay closed on Sundays.
Tesco's has said that no member of staff in Stornoway would be forced to work on a Sunday and that it had received a significant amount of positive reaction to its plans.
Well, let's talk now to the Minister of the Reformed Presbyterian Church, Reverend Kenneth Stewart. Good morning to you, Reverend Stewart. You're trying to keep Sunday special, and if Tesco are going to open up, that means it won't be quite as special for you.
Well, yes, good morning, and thanks for having me on. Yes, Tesco, for some reason, they claim it's not economic advantage, but for some reason they've decided to go against hundreds of years of tradition on this island and the deeply held religious convictions of many, many people, including, of course, their own customers who are really grieved by this decision. We come obviously from the standpoint that a day of rest is effectively mandatory. It's a human right, along with the other 10 commandments which have undergirded our moral and legal fabric in society. It actually enshrines the human right to a day of rest. And of course, in the UK, that's been eroded for many, many years. Incidentally, it's still far more respected on the continent. But for us here, the Sabbath or the day of rest has been very, very important. It's not just what we do, it's who we are. And for some reason, Tesco have decided just to go against that.
And Reverend Stewart, we were actually talking about this earlier, how in European countries, I mean, even in France, which is a secular country, still very few shops will open on a Sunday.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Now, Surrey Council have run out of state school places for former private school pupils who've been hounded out by Labour's VAT tax raid. The council admitted that there would be no vacancies now for year 9, 10 and 11 pupils following a concerned parent who sent in a Freedom of Information request, who just wondered which state schools would actually have the capacity to take children. Data reveals that there may be additional space for year 7 and 8 pupils, but obviously that's not nearly enough, is it? Meanwhile, Labour's Annalise Dodds said this week that every child deserves a great education, while she was spending your money in Malawi to help 7.5 million children over there. Joining me now is the head teacher at LVS Ascot, Christine Cunningham. Christine, I mean, what are these kids going to do?
Well, we saw it was going to happen. It's happening. It's reality now, and there is a shortage of space. I mean, our school borders on Surrey, and 1 in 5 children in private education, and those spaces aren't there. I've had parents who've applied for spaces, and they've been given places in Essex and West Sussex.
Seriously?
Yeah. And if that's the case, and it's you have to, and there's no transport, then the local authority will pay for taxis.
The local authority will pay for taxis?
Yeah.
So just to have this right then, so local councils, some of whom, by the way, for example, in Windsor and Maidenhead, the Royal Borough, they're looking at increasing council tax by 25%.
Yeah.
Conceivably, some of that money is going to have to go to paying for taxis for children to go out of the borough to go to school.
100%. And they're not in our school, but I know of another story of a mother who's had to take 2 of her children out of school. They've both got special education needs, and the school that they're having to go to, the taxi fare is in excess of £20,000 a year, which, if you think about the school fees and then the taxi fees, it's nonsense.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Well, on an even more basic level than just that, though, we have got class sizes running over 30 per class right across the country now. It's becoming a norm. So this might be affecting... So it's come out in Surrey now because one parent submitted an FOI. I imagine this is happening across the country. So what are parents going to be faced with? A choice here of sending children to a class size of 40. You know, this doesn't seem to benefit anyone, does it? Even the children who were already at that state school, you know, the teachers who were at that state school, they're not going to want to be sitting there amongst a class of 40, 45 kids, are they?
No, and it's children that will suffer at the end of the day. And, you know, people in private ed are actually saving the taxpayer money by paying for the education. They're already paying it for in their taxes, and now the children are going to be forced into, as you say, larger classes, and no one benefits from that at all. The teachers don't, and nor do the children, especially the children.
Well, you think this is going to get worse, do you?
100%. I mean, the figures have always been there. The projections were always there. And I know that the government have said, no, it would only be X amount % of children. But I think we're going to see a higher number of children who are leaving the schools. And we're seeing the evidence of that now. There'll be another census coming out in January as well, so that'll be really interesting as well.
That will be interesting. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to read out what the government spokesperson has said on this. It said, ending tax breaks for private schools will raise £1.8 billion a year by 2029 to 30 to help fund public services, including supporting the 94% of children in state schools to achieve and thrive. Local authorities are responsible for planning and securing sufficient school places for their area. However, we are confident that the state sector will be able to accommodate any additional pupils. Would you like to come back to that at all? I mean...
Well, you'd hope that the spaces are there for children. We've been promised that. So now the local authorities, the government have got to make sure that those spaces are there for those children. And it's not just about, you know, it's not going to raise the 1.8 billion that they say it's going to raise, because the more children that come out of private ed, the less revenue, obviously, for the government there as well. And it's going to cost the local state schools more money. And, you know, state schools are struggling with their finances as well. And this is just going to push the pressures too far for everyone.
I'm convinced more people are going to end up homeschooling. Because if it is a straight choice between taking your child out of the school that you obviously paid for and wanted them to go to and presumably were quite happy with, and plonking them in a school that's either A, like 20 miles away, or B, awful and just not what you want, then you probably would take your chances as a parent and think, well, I'll try and find a way of homeschooling that child.
100%. And I'm seeing a rise in that. I'm hearing that more children are being homeschooled now. And the statistics there as well about the number of children that aren't in school. And, you know, and there are some good online schools now. It doesn't replicate the benefits of going to school and being with other children. But at the end of the day, if your choices are very limited, you have to weigh up your options, what's right for your child.
Yeah, absolutely. And just very quickly, just that thing there, you know, Labour off there in Malawi helping 7.5 million children over there. Maybe they could start at home?
Well, that's the saying, isn't it? You know, to be quite honest, we've got to look after our children. They're the future of our country, and they're the ones we should be investing in.
All right, lovely stuff. Well, look, thank you very much, especially
Thank
for
you.
giving up a bit of your Friday night for us as well. So great to have you on the show. Coming up, the former Conservative leadership candidate Tom Tugendhat is joining me to discuss the alleged Chinese spy who has links to Prince Andrew being banned from entering the UK on national security grounds. I think it's very weird, that story. But next, Ed Miliband is unable to account for 43 grand of your money spent on refurbishing his office, and he can't actually confirm it did get refurbished. Do you think he might be in a bit of trouble here?
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, welcome to your latest Met Office weather update here on GB News. If you feel like you've not seen the sun all week, brighter skies for many tomorrow. We should see a little bit of blue sky. The sky's likely to be back to grey by Sunday, however, but then it will be milder. We do have a weather front tracking south. That is trying to push away all the cloud, and it's doing so across Scotland and Northern Ireland tonight. That will allow it to turn quite chilly. It's bringing a little bit of rain over Northern England, North Wales, patchy rain and drizzle further south, quite murky over the hills as well, misty conditions, but all that cloud again keeping temperatures above freezing in the south, whereas we will see some pockets of frost over Northern England and eastern Scotland. A few showers coming in on that brisk wind as well, but generally that cloud will continue to drift southwards. So yes, first thing, still pretty drab over East Anglia and southern England. A little bit of rain here and there, but nothing too heavy. It is going to get brighter. Already though, by 7, 8 o'clock, we'll see breaks in the cloud over Wales, northern England. Fine start for much of Northern Ireland. Just a few showers on the north coast. A few showers filtering in over northern Scotland. A bit of snow mixed in with those, but only really over the tops of the mountains. And then as we go through the day, as I say, many places will see sunny spells. The showers actually tending to fade over North Wales and western Scotland, and the cloud finally breaking up across East Anglia in the southeast. So yes, you should see a bit of sunshine here after what's been a very gloomy week. Meanwhile, it will then turn cloudy and soggy across the far northwest with a breeze picking up here. Temperature-wise, single digits, so still a chilly feel, but with a bit of sunshine. That makes such a difference, and it's certainly looking milder on Sunday. The cloud is back. A grey day for many. Rain and drizzle over hills and around coasts in the west, and it could turn very wet across northwest Scotland by the end of Sunday. Also quite windy here on Sunday, and some gusty winds over northern England too, so be aware of that. But despite the wind and the cloud, it will be a lot milder on Sunday.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight,
British people have paid £130,000 to the government since you came into power for offices to be redecorated. £43,000 has gone to the Net Zero Department, DESNZ. What's it paid for, Mr Miliband?
Oh, I've no idea, Nick.
Ed Miliband does not know where £43,000 of your money has gone.
Rachel Kite is an esteemed person who is recognised for her leadership, and all they can do is fling around baseless allegations.
He won't say yes or no to whether or not he declared the fact that a woman from a company that donated £4 million to Labour and £99,000 to himself got a job.
Look, with hindsight, I think we can say, looking back on the events of 2013, that the hesitation of this country and the United States create a vacuum that Russia moved into and kept Assad in power for much longer.
And now it looks as though his colleague, the Health Secretary, is actually turning on him.
The message from government is we've got to build this energy infrastructure for energy security, for good jobs, for lower bills, and indeed to tackle the climate crisis.
How many lies can you count there in that one? Yeah, he's decided to plough ahead with wall-to-wall wind farms in the countryside. I've got a feeling that Miliband's days might be numbered. Also tonight,
I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time.
Well, now Prince Andrew is linked to a Chinese spy. First it was Epstein, now it's this. I think there's something very weird going on here, and I've got Tom Tugendhat on to discuss that. My panel tonight are the ex-Tory MP Anna Firth, the Director for the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity Stephen Wolfe, and the ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Talbot. Oh, and this is nuts, OK? This man here has been tearing down Christmas lights all over the place. We need your help to catch the Suffolk Scrooge. Get ready, Britain, here we go. Red Ed Miliband is in a lot of trouble. Next.
Good evening, I'm Will Hollis, and at 10 o'clock, nothing of a sensitive nature was discussed between the Duke of York and a suspected Chinese spy. That's according to the Duke's office. A statement says the Duke of York followed advice from His Majesty's government and ceased all contact with the individual after concerns were raised. The man, known only as H6, was said to be a close confidant of the Prince and reportedly invited to the Duke's birthday. The Prime Minister has said the world should be cautious about what comes next in Syria. Speaking during a virtual meeting of the G7, Sir Keir Starmer told allies, while welcoming the Syrian regime's collapse, a new government should be credible and inclusive for all Syrians, fearing sectarian violence if not. Tonight, Syrians in the capital Damascus and across the country are celebrating the collapse of the regime. Back here, the government has unveiled a Clean Power Action Plan to decarbonise the electricity grid by 2030. Number 10 claims the move will protect households from any future energy spikes, boost growth and tackle the climate crisis. Meanwhile, some government-backed researchers have warned Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change Ed Miliband's plans could actually increase energy bills. Well, earlier GB News spoke to Energy Minister Michael Shanks.
Yes, reforming the planning system to make sure we build things faster than we are at the moment is important, but we're not removing the right of communities to have a voice in that process. What we're saying is at the moment the planning process is often just drown in paperwork for years and years, which doesn't help communities but also doesn't get really essential infrastructure built.
In other news, a predator described as wicked who was caught on CCTV raping and killing an NHS worker has been jailed for life. Mohammed Lidow attacked mother of three. Natalie shot her while she was passed out in Southall Park, West London. Lidow was found guilty of her rape and manslaughter. Richard Marks KC sentenced him to life with a minimum term of 10 years and 8 months. 2 men were arrested after a Christmas fairground ride crashed to the ground in Birmingham city centre. The men aged 55 and 21 were arrested at the scene yesterday evening on suspicion of perverting the course of justice and obstructing officers. They remain in custody. 2 women were taken to hospital after the City Star Flyer ride failed and crashed, while another 11 patients were assessed by paramedics and discharged at the scene. And finally, your last one for now. Police are asking for the public's help to find out who these vandals are who have targeted decorations in East Anglia. Captured on CCTV, at least 5 incidents of people cutting wires on Christmas lights have been reported. Police say the mindless vandalism by the so-called Suffolk Scroogers has brought hurt and financial costs to young and old in the area. Well, those are your latest headlines. For now, let's get you back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
The British public could be forgiven for thinking that Ed Miliband is a pathological liar and a numpty who sleeps in a high-vis jacket and a hard hat. He's had a shocker this morning. He was unable to account for £43,000 of taxpayers' money spent allegedly on refurbishing his own office.
British people have paid £130,000 to the government since you came into power for offices to be redecorated and have new furniture. Of the £130,000, £43,000 has gone to the Net Zero Department, DESNZ. What's it paid for, Mr Miliband?
Well, I've no idea, Nick.
So you've been in receipt of £43,000 of £130,000.
Honestly, you know, look, I'm worrying about the nation's energy system. I'm trying to get the nation's energy system right. I don't know.
You're not aware of this refurbishment?
No, I'm not.
Have you got a new chair?
Well, it's not the only money problem he's got. He is refusing to answer whether or not he declared a £4 million donation to the Labour Party and a £99,000 donation to himself from an organisation that has links to the woman that he has just appointed as his climate envoy. We asked him if he declared that money, because if not, there would be serious allegations of corruption and cronyism, and he is refusing to answer the question. All he can say is...
The message from government is we've got to build this energy infrastructure for energy security, for good jobs, for lower bills, and indeed to tackle the climate crisis.
And that woman got the job on her own merits, of course. This isn't the only time that people have accused him of being a little bit dodgy. He said an independent report by the National Energy Systems Operator that completely vindicated all of his madcap radical policies. Well, he said it was independent. And then it turned out that Ed Miliband happened to be the person of significant control at that company, seemingly with the power to hire and fire the bloke running it. And it called into question how independent that report really was. Now, Ed Miliband refuses to comment on this when we put it to him. There's a theme here, isn't there? But, and I am at pains to stress this, the NESO website says that there is an operational separation between the minister and the company, and that everything is completely above board, and Ed Miliband couldn't do anything wrong even if he wanted to. But you can decide, can't you? Later today, Ed Miliband wanted to talk to you about wind turbines.
Talking for 1 minute as we walk the length of this 108-metre wind turbine blade without hesitation, deviation or repetition about clean energy. Chris.
Look at the size of this thing. This monster is going to be in the seas around.
He wants to classify wind turbines and solar farms as nationally significant infrastructure projects, which will strip residents, communities and councils of their powers to block, amend or delay green energy projects, which Mr Miliband wants to build across swathes of your countryside. Problems. Yesterday, just 8.3% of electricity came from wind. Gas was the main one. And this actually meant that if you have a heat pump, 3/4 of heat yesterday came from fossil fuels. Offshore wind, well, he wants loads of it. Problems. A site called Sea Green generated an impressive quantity of power in the first 10 months of this year, which earned its operators £70 million. but they were paid almost as much to switch its turbines off, at least £57 million. In total, we spent £1 billion turning wind turbines off so that it didn't surge the grid. Ed Miliband said he'd make your energy bills come down. Your bills are going up a lot. And now he's trying to backtrack on Radio 4 today.
They're not saying that there's a guarantee of any sort the bills will come down.
They're not saying it's a guarantee, but what I'm saying
they're not even predicting it.
We're confident based on what they are saying is it will lead to lower wholesale costs of electricity. If you look at their document, Nick, that's what it sets out, and it can lead to lower bills.
Perhaps, all based on one scenario about what gas prices will be. But you don't have any control over gas prices, and neither do they. This is guesswork, isn't it?
No, it isn't.
OK. He said that he'd create jobs. Those jobs do not currently exist. But there have been thousands of real jobs lost at steelworks, coal plants, oil rigs, etc. But the worst thing is his sums don't add up. He says that renewables will generate about £40 billion in investment. But those companies are just going to pass that cost on to you, the customer. And he's already spent the entire black hole, £22 billion, on carbon capture projects in the northeast. Oh, and now his own cabinet colleagues are turning on him. Wes Streeting threw him under the bus a little bit on Question Time over his role in not bombing Assad in Syria. In just one day, Ed Miliband has shown that he doesn't really feel like he needs to justify losing 43 grand of your money. He refuses to answer questions about alleged cronyism and corruption, and he doesn't seem to mind lying to you. Let's get the thoughts of my panel. Former Conservative MP Anna Firth, Director for the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity Stephen Wolfe, and the former Labour Party advisor Matthew Torbet. Anna, I'll start with you on this. Do you think Ed Miliband's all right?
I think it's deeply disrespectful to working people to laugh. You know, it's bad enough not to know where money is being spent in your department, but then to just laugh when £43,000 has just gone astray. I mean, £43,000 is a lot of money to working people. But the thing about Ed Miliband is he promised us we would see a reduction in our bills of £300. The only £300 we've actually seen since the election are the pensioners who've lost it. So, you know, he hasn't been being honest with us, and the problems that we've had this week just show us that his ideas that we can just flood the whole countryside with wind turbines and solar panels are not going to work.
Yeah, there are some issues when it comes to this idea that the Labour Party received about £4 million plus a £99,000 donation to himself from a company that has links to his current climate envoy. And look, she may well have got that job on her own merit. I mean, she seems like she is qualified. I'm not trying to, disrespect the lady here at all. However, he doesn't seem to want to answer whether or not he declared that money, and that should be quite an easy yes or no question, shouldn't it?
Of course it should.
If he'd have declared it. That might be why he's not answering us. I can't really offer up a...
It's down the back of his chair.
No, I think there's... I remember during this feeds back into optics and how the Labour Party's communications operation has been, quite frankly, dreadful for the last decade. At least, and certainly since I was involved, I would be pulling my hair out and continue to do so. I think it's the same thing of the Lord Ali donation stuff. Like, how could this look? You might be doing everything above board, but you've got to remember politics is a cynical business, and how will this look? So she might well be prominent enough, but therefore why have we not been full and frank enough?
Do you ultimately think that he might be slightly on the right track in terms of us needing to go green a bit, though?
I think you need to have... The problem is you've got to bring people with you for a start. So when Sadiq Khan got it all wrong with you, Les, I think I was part of a group that said you need to be offering a much more generous scrappage scheme. Not everyone can afford to just go out in the next 5 years and buy a green car or whatever else. You need to be offering people the right money to be able to do that, and that way you win people over. I think you do need to entice people with money and whatnot, but it needs to be varied.
And, Stephen, just on the wind turbines, because what you really wanted today to be about, Ed Miliband, was wind turbines. And I'm starting to wonder whether or not he wants every day to be about wind turbines. but what he wanted was that. And his main ambition, it seems, is to change planning laws, etc., so that you can't object to wind turbines in your area. Problem for him being that we spent about £1 billion since the start of the year turning wind turbines off so that we didn't surge the grid, and then at times when we might need them, like yesterday, there wasn't enough wind, and something like only 8.3% of our energy, I think, was generated by wind. It actually works out more expensive.
Yeah, maybe he likes wind turbines because he's so full of wind. And he quite enjoys it. I mean, we just took talking about it. I haven't only just recognised that he looks like Wallace from Wallace and Gromit. Well, lots of people have seen that.
Yeah, to be honest, there's enough to criticise him here for without going off the personal
what I'm saying today is that was his Bacon moment again when he was raised about whether he knew how much money he had in the chair. You know, and did he know whether he's got a new chair? What the point really about Ed Miliband is he's spending money that is not necessarily in the right direction. We've been talking about it in the green room. We're just about to launch a new nuclear station that cost us £46 billion, but it will heat with electricity 6 million homes. There are only 30 million homes or dwellings, as the government calls them, in this country. Therefore, for 5 nuclear power stations at £46 billion apiece, we would be able to actually provide electricity for all the houses in this country. If we had another 2, we provide enough for all the businesses in this country. And I would argue that if we spent that £46 billion, we'd be able to provide free energy plus savings the costs across the spectrum. We wouldn't have to have wind farms. We wouldn't have to have solar panels. We wouldn't have to have carbon capture. All that money is wasted. And as Anna raised the point, 2 of those nuclear power stations at £46 billion apiece is the same cost as HS2. Right. Why don't we spend it on that? Then he'd be out of a job and we'd be quite happy with free electricity.
I totally agree with what Stephen's saying about nuclear is the way to go. What I wouldn't want is the government actually building these stations themselves, because we've seen what's happened with HS2. As soon as the government gets involved, the costs skyrocket, and generally you get a worse result. But Ed, you mentioned yesterday, but what about on Tuesday? On Tuesday, the wind farms could only power 3 to 4% of the grid. So 96 or 97% of our energy on Tuesday had to come from other sources. So we have to have a balanced energy supply in this country.
The question mark, I suppose, would be whether or not Ed Miliband has gone so far down the rabbit hole and backed himself into a corner, really. Like, he might genuinely believe it. And earlier on, I said, maybe he's a pathological liar. Right, I was kind of joking there. I mean, I think there are things that he's been pretty fruity with the truth on, right, to say the least, and I have outlined those. However, I do also think that what we might be looking at here is a man who does genuinely believe, to the point of being borderline radical in this stuff, and is willing to make, for us all, to make certain sacrifices in order for that to happen. And I wonder if we are hurtling towards blackouts, because what the heck do we do when 2030 rolls around and we're supposedly 95% reliable on renewable energy?
It's not going to happen.
And we haven't got the grid for it.
It's not going to happen.
But what does Labour do then about the blackouts, do we think?
That's if they're going to come down the tracks. I will not pretend to be any sort of expert on the climate. What I would say is that I always found Ed to be very arrogant, actually, I must admit, with my time in the party. But... Right. And he knows best. But at the end of the day, that's his attitude, and that's the way I found him. What I will say is that I know one of his special advisors very well, and he's one of the most intelligent people I've met in politics. Very normal, sort of gets it. I hope, therefore, that is the advice he would be listening to on this sort of stuff. But no, we've got. Again, for me, you've got to have a very. The only thing that worries me about nuclear, though, is I remember Tony Benn saying many years ago, when he was in a similar position to Ed Miliband, some sort of energy secretary under Clement Attlee, is he said you could never find a safe way of disposing of nuclear waste, and we still haven't found one yet. And the second thing was, all that happened with the nuclear energy plants is they became bomb-making plants for the US, and Clement Attlee didn't bother to tell him, which is why he resigned. So I worry a little bit about relying solely, therefore, on nuclear, but I do think there's totally a place for offshore wind and other
Elon
sorts of
Musk
things.
being able to have rockets that we can actually dispense them out into space.
Just one final point on it, just on this end, though. If he's not across this money being spent on his own office, does that bode that well for us when it comes to him being in charge of our entire national grid? I mean, he couldn't say He couldn't even come up with an answer. He was asked, by the way, the same question on an interview with Good Morning Britain as well, and he hadn't formulated an answer by then. I mean, has there been any redevelopment of his office for £43,000? Is this just a bloke who doesn't seem to care about wasting public money?
He either doesn't care or he's not the brightest bulb in the box. Is the way I would see it. But I actually think this is a really, really serious issue.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to have cheaper energy. At the moment, we've got, you know, some of the most expensive energy in Europe. We are not going to be a competitive global economy if we don't sort out our energy. So we have got to have a balanced energy approach. It's rushing at this headlong pace at net zero when, in fact, we've already seen only this week that when the wind doesn't blow or the sun isn't out, we are going to have blackouts. It's a disaster.
All right, OK. Well, so, look, again, I will stress categorically that on that issue of the NESO and the independent research thing, their website could not be clearer that there is operational separation between Ed Miliband and their a particular set of research, and obviously, as we know, Ed Miliband himself is categorical in the idea that what he is doing is completely correct, and we will all reap the dividends in the long run.
Can I issue one last bit of advice to Ed Miliband? Don't ever laugh during an interview. I used to hate... From a comms point of view, you come across so condescending, so out of touch with people that are struggling. I hated it when any boss of mine did that. I said, don't ever do that again.
43 grand is more than the average annual salary.
Absolutely.
Considerably more.
And to say that that's just gone, poof, that's just gone.
I do think there's a bit of gotcha journalism of trying to catch me out figures, but either way, don't laugh. Just say don't.
Maybe you can't just take a joke.
Maybe. There we go. Right, OK, it's time now for our greatest and biggest ever Great British giveaway, and it's your chance to win 50 grand in cold, hard, tax-free cash. Here's how you can make that money yours. All right, OK, coming up, what is going on here, everybody? Residents in Suffolk are being terrorised by a Scrooge. I'm going to reveal all... Look at that. What kind of bloke does that? Right, we need to catch this guy. I'll reveal more in my press pack.
Ed Miliband.
No, it's not. But first, the former Conservative leadership candidate, Tom Tugendhat, joins me to discuss the alleged Chinese spy who has links to Prince Andrew being banned from entering the UK on national security grounds. I think there's something very weird going on with Prince Andrew. Stay tuned.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Nana Acquia. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
The way in which children are being driven online because we're not taking them seriously offline. And what we're tending to do is seeing the problems entirely on the social media, forgetting the fact that we've given up on children being able to work independently and play independently outdoors. We've basically created a world where the digital bedroom has become this go-to area for a lot of young kids. We've given up on old-fashioned parenting, where we try to cultivate their resilience. And now we blame everything, all the problems that occur online. You have to remember that if you take something like bullying, bullying doesn't have to only take place online. It happens all the time, offline, in everyday life. But yet we only see the problem on the social media, and there's this obsession with the social media where every single problem that afflicts childhood is blamed on it. And that distracts us from actually understanding what we're doing wrong with children. So for me, and I hate when I see children with digital technology, when I see them with smartphones. I'm not a fan. I'm much more concerned about the fact that parents use their digital phones when they're having dinner with their kids and giving very bad examples in relation to that. But the real problem, it seems to me, is offline, and that's why we've got to crack the issue. So for me, the banning issue is entirely a headline-grabbing political gambit. And I think that we should be much more focused on the real problems rather than delude ourselves that anything will improve.
GB News, the People's Channel. Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, Prince Andrew is at the centre of another storm as new reports claim that one of his close confidants is an alleged Chinese spy. According to a secret hearing, the alleged spy was so close to Prince Andrew that he'd been told that he could act on the Duke of York's behalf when dealing with potential China investors. Now, the Home Office barred him from the UK in July 2023 after MI5 deemed him to be an agent who had engaged in covert and deceptive activity on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party. A spokesman for Prince Andrew said the Duke of York ceased all contact with the individual after concerns were raised. The Duke met the individual through official channels with nothing of a sensitive nature ever discussed. He's unable to comment further on matters relating to national security, which is quite convenient, isn't it? Now, at this point, look, to be honest with you, you've got to rack all these things up, haven't you? All right, so Andrew sold one of his homes to the son-in-law of a Kazakh despot for £3 million more than the asking price. Then you've got Ghislaine Maxwell sitting in the throne room. Then you've got Epstein Island. And then you've got this with the Chinese spy. There's a case to be said that maybe Andrew might not be that smart. I just can't help but wonder whether or not he's actually a threat to our national security. Earlier today, I spoke with former Minister for Security, Tom Tugendhat, about this. Tom, thank you very, very much for joining me tonight. Look, this is pretty awful, isn't it? I mean, Prince Andrew had an unusual level of trust with a man who turned out to be a Chinese spy. Just explain to our viewers and listeners why that is a bad thing in itself.
Well, I don't think many viewers will need much education on that one, frankly. The Chinese state has been hostile to our interests for many years now, and they've been seeking to try and push us around in different ways. Now, a lot of people have seen that through the overseas police stations in places like Croydon and Glasgow. A lot of people saw it visibly, and in fact, I know you reported on it, when the Chinese consul general in Manchester roughed up a couple of protesters outside his consulate. And a lot of people know that we've been subject to quite a lot of Chinese spying, stealing, intellectual property, so effectively stealing the secrets that companies have on how they make things and how they make profit and employ people in the United Kingdom. And all those three things have been bad for us. So to find somebody who's frankly in the action arm of the Chinese Communist Party, trying to influence our royal family, it's not a good look. It's really not.
No, I'm going to come on to Prince Andrew's potential ineptitude in a second, but Before that, what about our own security services? I mean, there's no such thing, really, as a Chinese entrepreneur and businessman because of the level of state control that China has in their own country. Everything seems to be state-controlled. Surely our national security services must have known this, and he was still allowed to get close to the royal family.
Well, we have links in various different ways with Chinese businesses all across the United Kingdom, and there are Chinese students in the United Kingdom and so on. You know, we can't close ourselves off completely. We're not, you know, we're not going to stop any engagement with China, but we've got to make sure we're aware of the danger, and that's why people who are in the public eye, people who are prominent, people like me, or of course people like members of the royal family, have to be aware that you could be a target, not because you may have anything interesting yourself. I don't think anybody gave any secrets to Prince Andrew, but because Prince Andrew and people like him have access to others and can bring people together. And that's why, you know, MI5 and the intelligence agencies are helpful in making sure that you know, or you can find out if you need to be cautious. It seems that his office, maybe even him, didn't do their homework.
Look, I think there's something quite weird going on here. So there was a message on this guy's phone that said that Andrew was in such a desperate situation and is willing to grab onto anything. You look back at Andrew's track record, he sold one of his homes for £3 million more than the asking price to the son-in-law of a Kazakh despot. We had Ghislaine Maxwell in the throne room, we had Epstein Island, and now we've got a close relationship with a Chinese spy. And mysteriously, Tommy appears to have found about £3 million out of nowhere to be able to stay at Royal Lodge. Is Andrew a national security risk?
I think he's a very, very unwise individual. Look, he doesn't have access to any secrets. He doesn't have access to anything of any particular importance. And you've seen that the king has been extremely careful in making sure that his position in the royal family is extremely limited. I think the king's played this extremely wisely. I think what he's done and the way in which he's protected himself and the country has been extremely sensible. I think, you know, you don't need me to tell you that Prince Andrew's been an idiot over many years. That seems to be what we're seeing now. So
you are firmly in the camp of Prince Andrew's an idiot, he's not actually a nefarious actor?
Look, I mean, you've got to assume that what he's doing is just deeply unwise. I've seen no proof of intelligence in any other way.
Okay. Okay. When it comes to the fact that Suella Braverman actually is, I believe, responsible initially for turfing this chap out, is that right? So I suppose this was actually a win for the late Tory government, was it?
Absolutely. Look, you know, we spent an awful lot of effort, an awful lot of time making sure that individuals were identified. If they were not the sort of people we wanted here for various different reasons, we made sure that they didn't get in. And this is one of those moments where we were able to take the action that we needed to take.
Yeah, indeed. When it comes to this, in terms of the access to the royal family, I mean, Prince Andrew was incredibly active for a large number of years. People were saying, you know, he's the Queen's favourite son. He had pitch at the palace. He had all sorts of things going on. I mean, he was a bit of an international globetrotter for quite a while. Is there not a concern, maybe, here, that when you look back at that track record for Andrew, when certainly the company he used to keep with the likes of Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, there's a fear that he may have been compromised in some way quite early on, and that could be one of the reasons why we are now seeing things like Chinese spies invited to his birthday party?
So I think when he was working, he had the advice and he had the support of the Buckingham Palace, you know, network. So, you know, straight into government, straight advice from the Foreign Office, all that sort of stuff. Now that he's not, now that he's if you like, he's a private citizen. I know he's a member of the royal family, but he is a private citizen. He doesn't have access to that, and you can see that has he hasn't always made the best decision.
Surely we've got to have some kind of investigation here into where this money's come from to stay at Royal Lodge. You know, I mean, in light of what we're seeing now and the kind of company he was keeping, you've got the Chinese government acutely aware that Prince Andrew's willing to grab onto anything, take anything from anywhere. This is a problem. Do we not need to have a bit of transparency here from Prince Andrew? I mean, he's no longer a working member of the royal family, so I suppose that taboo has gone in terms of actually investigating him. Surely we need to have a look.
Well, I think what we need to do is make sure that the King and the Prince of Wales, as the two most important members of the royal family, are properly protected from this, and I'm afraid this is another moment when their brother or uncle is not exactly helping. But I think the King and the Prince of Wales have behaved entirely appropriately through all of this, and I think the King has has made sure that Prince Andrew has no more influence over any form of state occasion at all.
Okay, look, just lastly, Tom, whilst I've got you, you ran an incredibly good and spirited leadership campaign. Unfortunately, didn't quite get over the line, but it was good. We are in a situation at the moment where Kemi Badenoch is in charge. I think it is quite widely perceived that she's not really cutting through. Do you think you'd be doing a better job?
I think Kemi's doing a great job. I think you're being a little unfair. I think Kemi is getting her feet under the desk and is beginning to raise her profile. Look, quite understandably, a lot of people are comparing her to other actors on the public field at the moment. I know you are, and I get that, and of course you're right to do so. But the truth is, other people have been more prominent for longer. And what Kemi's doing is she's setting out, quite rightly, the principles on which she stands. So, I am a fan of Kemi's. I think she's going to do a great job. I think she's going to be Prime Minister in 5 years' time, and I think she's just what the country needs.
Tom, thank you very, very much. Always a pleasure. Good to see you, and hope to see you very soon. Enjoy your weekend.
Cheers, Patrick. Good to see you.
Yeah, I stand by. I think there's something incredibly strange about this Prince Andrew story. But anyway, still to come. Residents in Suffolk are being terrorised by a Scrooge. He's going around turning off Christmas lights, vandalising. He's prolific, this guy. He cannot be contained. We need to track him down and find him. And I'll be bringing you a first look at tomorrow's newspapers' front pages, hot off the press. Stay tuned for that.
Evening. Welcome to your latest Met Office weather update here on GB News. If you feel like you've not seen the sun all week, brighter skies for many tomorrow. We should see a little bit of blue sky. The sky's likely to be back to grey by Sunday, however, but then it will be milder. We do have a weather front tracking south. That is trying to push away all the cloud, and it's doing so across Scotland and Northern Ireland tonight. That will allow it to turn quite chilly. It's bringing a little bit of rain over Northern England, North Wales, patchy rain and drizzle further south, quite murky over the hills as well, misty conditions, but all that cloud again keeping temperatures above freezing in the south, whereas we will see some pockets of frost over Northern England and eastern Scotland. A few showers coming in on that brisk wind as well, but generally that cloud will continue to drift southwards. So yes, first thing, still pretty drab over East Anglia and southern England. A little bit of rain here and there, but nothing too heavy. It is going to get brighter. Already though, by 7, 8 o'clock, we'll see breaks in the cloud over Wales, northern England. Fine start for much of Northern Ireland. Just a few showers on the north coast. A few showers filtering in over northern Scotland. A bit of snow mixed in with those, but only really over the tops of the mountains. And then as we go through the day, as I say, many places will see sunny spells. The showers actually tending to fade over North Wales and western Scotland, and the cloud finally breaking up across East Anglia in the southeast. So yes, you should see a bit of sunshine here after what's been a very gloomy week. Meanwhile, it will then turn cloudy and soggy across the far northwest with a breeze picking up here. Temperature-wise, single digits, so still a chilly feel, but with a bit of sunshine. That makes such a difference, and it's certainly looking milder on Sunday. The cloud is back. A grey day for many. Rain and drizzle over hills and around coasts in the west, and it could turn very wet across northwest Scotland by the end of Sunday. Also quite windy here on Sunday, and some gusty winds over northern England too, so be aware of that. But despite the wind and the cloud, it will be a lot milder on Sunday.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Welcome back. I've got to look at your front pages now, so let's do them. We start with the Daily Star. Sandwichgate, Butty Botherer. Give Sarnies a chance. All right, now, I was slightly concerned about whether or not I'd gone too far with Ed Miliband earlier, but the Star have just called him a Butty Botherer, so I think actually I'm all right. The iWeekend, smart gadgets spying on us more than ever, with air fryers now recording conversations. You are being spied on by your air fryer. We're going to talk about that. Daily Express, stop crashing Britain's economy. This is a message to Labour from Kemi Badenoch. The Mirror, China crisis. This is the Prince Andrew story. We've just spoken about that. Exasperated Charles. I mean, if he wasn't exasperated before, I'm sure he is now. And the Mail carry the same story on the front. Andrew has known China spy for 10 years. Apparently he met him in 2012. Only dropped him after he was rumbled. The Times, again, Duke's spy went to palace. Look, I'm telling you, I think there's something very, very strange going on with Andrew. Was there something he was compromised for a while ago and he has been doing this stuff? No doubt he would vehemently deny that. Let's just go for the iWeekend, because I imagine a lot of people this Christmas might be on the receiving end of an air fryer, not in a fit of anger, but as a present. I got one last year by my wonderful mother-in-law, so thank you very much, Karen. However, it's spying on me, isn't it? Yeah. What's going on here, then?
She's spying on you. She's given it to you, and it's straight to her app, every conversation you've got.
Is this? Yeah, well, that's terrifying.
I mean, is it really true? I mean, I'm very pleased. I haven't got an air fryer, but I have asked for one of these posh coffee machines.
No, don't do it.
Is that going to spy on you?
That's how they get you, you see.
So
you can learn Italian in it.
Just to clarify, this is an official warning about kitchen gadgets after a big increase in snooping. They're saying that smart devices are collecting too much personal information. But who are they relaying this back to?
Is it Chinese air fryers?
Chinese.
I think you know, data is power in this world, and I think the more you can find out about somebody, the better. The thing is, though, I wouldn't want to unnecessarily worry people. Anyone that remembers Edward Snowden and him sort of whistleblowing in America, your mobile phone is likely being watched, your WhatsApps and every picture you send is being watched. Don't worry about what you're putting your chips in, because we're all probably being watched anyway. You know, I wouldn't worry about it too much.
But I think the real concern for me about it is the way that all this data is being collected. You say exactly who has it. Ultimately, it finds its way down through to those who are going to be controlling AI. And this is about managing what you buy, where you eat, how you... And that's the future I'm more concerned about, the Solent Green scenario from that terrifying movie of the 70s.
So just a little bit more detail on this. They do think, shock horror, that this might be the Chinese and government, I should point out. And they say that, yeah, so a lot of the companies here are linked to an app you can get on your phone to use your air fryer via your phone. This means it has access to a whole lot of things, like your location, where you go, how long you're in the home for, what you're maybe searching whilst you're also logged onto the app. So basically, it is literally a massive data. Any electronic device in your home, like an Alexa or other ones, that by definition is listening to every single thing that you say, because the second you talk to it, it reacts. So it means it must be listening to everything else. I don't want to get the tinfoil hat on here, but I feel a little bit weird about that. I don't like
I don't have an Alexa.
I don't have an Alexa, Patrick.
Absolutely not.
And this is all about privacy settings, isn't it? And it's all about, you know, making sure that you've got the settings set right so that you're not being spied on, which is fine and well, I suppose, if you are sort of au fait with all of that. But you know, maybe be careful who you give your air fryer to.
Yeah. Governments obviously know this stuff as well. I remember Kamala Harris having the mickey taken out of her for one of many things, actually. But she had the sort of old school headphones with the wire on them, and people were saying, why is she doing that? She looks ridiculous. And apparently it was because anyone can sort of try and use your Bluetooth, and they could potentially listen to her conversations through the sort of wireless AirPods and stuff like that. So she would only use those, and there's obviously a reason for that.
Interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. Let's just whiz ourselves on to a story that's got me absolutely fizzing this. Residents of not one, not two, no, five Suffolk villages are being terrorised by a vandaliser targeting their Christmas decorations. The Suffolk police shared a video of the culprit cutting the wires on someone's Christmas lights. There was also reports of an inflatable Santa being punctured. PC Simon Lance of Suffolk Police said, why someone decided to carry out this period of mindless vandalism is not clear, but it has brought hurt as well as financial cost to many residents in the area. Now, this individual has targeted Stanningfield, Great Finborough, One House, Combs, and he's even come for Bassisford. This is a non-stop crime spree. I mean, look, on a serious note, there is something very terrifying about if you were in your front room there and, you know, this masked guy comes and starts cutting your wires. It is scary, but we need to try and find this bloke. I mean, that's all we've got to go off at the moment.
I think we should ask our air fryer.
Yeah, that's true.
Who is he? Who's the Suffolk Scrooge?
Did this all happen on one night?
No, it's been spread out.
OK, because I was going to say, listen, you know, we've all done things we're not proud of after a few beers or whatever, and has he just done something ridiculous? But this is over a few nights.
This is a moment for setting up your CCTV cameras, actually, and to catch this guy. It should be perfectly possible.
But he's got a great skill. He came in with a black jumper and then went out with a white one.
I know.
I know. He was definitely multiracial.
It's pretty awful, isn't it? I mean, honestly, you know, it's Christmas time and you're going around behaving like that. I really hope that the police find him and I really hope they throw the book at him.
This has got to be like a criminologist's dream, this, hasn't it? You know, trying to find he obviously hates Christmas. There's some kind of trauma in the past there around Christmas time, isn't there? There is. You know, maybe he just hates the multicolour. So it's someone who's colourblind with a traumatic Christmas past. We're piecing this together now, but honestly, this is a bit cuckoo. And you know, maybe it starts with the Christmas lights, and before you know it,
and then it's the animals.
Well,
and then suddenly he's burning down the whole villages.
And so,
it's Guy Fawkes too.
Apparently, nowhere in Suffolk is safe. So we need to get the Suffolk Scrooge.
Well, and I speak.
We need to get the Suffolk police out on the beat and actually doing their job.
Well, quite.
That's what we need.
Quite. But hopefully
they can beat the Suffolk Scrooge if they get out there.
Well, yeah, no, again, I'm sorry to raise this, and I'm sorry for my language, but we did have the ongoing case of the Somerset Gimp for a while. And this was the individual... Yeah, I know. Sorry. Sorry.
The Somerset Gimp and the Suffolk Scrooge.
It's true. It was a guy who used to put full latex on and wander around Somerset, jumping out at people.
Terrifying, really.
Scaring them. It is actually genuine.
I won't fancy coming face to face with it.
And it took them, like, a year or so to catch the person. They did catch someone. He was found guilty of it. He denies it, vehemently denies it, but he was found guilty in a court of law. But is this another
Has
case?
he been released and turned into the Suffolk Scrooge?
Well, maybe.
I don't know.
What a weird world. Anyway, coming up, I'll be bringing you the rest of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, and I'll be revealing who I crown as my final Greatest Bristol Union Jackass of the week. So stay tuned.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Joining me now is food historian and author of Christmas with Dickens, Pen Vogler. Pen, let's start with Christmas Carol. Did A Christmas Carol change Britain's view of Christmas?
I think it did, enormously. Before then, people were beginning to think, as they do now, that Christmas might be being a little bit commercial. It was too much food and drink, not enough kind of seriousness or not enough kind of love and family. And what Dickens did with A Christmas Carol was show people who were coming to the cities, who were kind of losing their rural history, a new way of celebrating Christmas, that a real, just a family could get together and love and kind of get around the table together. And whereas before, a lot of those kind of Christmas dishes would have been seasonal, lots of people would have eaten them at different times of the year, Dickens does two things. He takes the goose, which is what the Cratchits are going to eat, and he turns it to a turkey, much bigger, meatier, kind of more generous. And then he takes this thing that he never calls Christmas pudding in A Christmas Carol. There's no Christmas pudding. He only calls it plum pudding, and he anchors it to that day. And interestingly, after then, people start publishing recipes for Christmas pudding, and it starts getting its name, Christmas pudding, from plum pudding. And I think all of that really comes from A Christmas Carol.
You say becomes a Christmas pudding almost immediately after A Christmas Carol is published.
Yes, I mean, it's occasionally called Christmas pudding before, but not often. And then a very famous for the time, the kind of Delia Smith of her day, lady called Eliza Acton, publishes a recipe called The Author's Christmas Pudding in 1845. And we know she's a big Dickens fan because she sent a copy of her cookbook to him.
GB News, the People's Channel.
So we're back on air. Good. Let's do the final newspaper of the day. It's the Daily Telegraph, and this is MI5 probes Duke's cash from China. It's the Prince Andrew story. We all know it by now, but he's got serious questions to answer about this. But now I want to bring you a clip that's going viral now. It's an old clip. It's going viral now, and I think it might be, quite high up the news agenda tomorrow. It's one of Nigel Farage. Kemi Badenoch has dug him out, right? And she's basically said, look, here you are, Nigel, talking historically about immigration in a way that you're certainly not talking about it now. Here's the clip.
Working lunch today, cheese and pickle sandwich. Proper job.
No, that was the wrong clip. It's Nigel talking about a sandwich, but here he is talking about uncontrolled immigration.
As a first-generation immigrant, can I welcome the Home Secretary's statement, which I feel this immigration white paper is a move from the 20th century to a much better future immigration system. In particular, I'd like to thank the Home Secretary for removing the annual limits on work visas and also on international students, both of which I lobbied for on behalf of the Wellcome Sanger Institute and Anglia Ruskin University, which serve my constituency. Could he elaborate on how removing the work visa cap in particular will give business certainty?
Right, finally, we'll get to the clip of Nigel talking about immigration in a way that you've never heard him talk before.
Now, when it comes to overseas students, not just from Europe, but let's think about the world, because I'm getting a bit bored with us thinking about Europe the whole time. Let's think about the globe. We're living in the 21st century. I think further education, potentially, it's already big. It should be something this country makes a great deal of money from. We should encourage as many foreign students as possible to come to Britain and pay the fees.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, obviously, Nigel has not had a chance to respond to that yet, but interesting. We'll have to see what the response is. I did want to play that to you ultimately there, because I think it's going to be something that's doing the rounds on GB News quite a bit tomorrow. What do you make of that? But let's go whiz through very quickly Greatest Britain Union Jackass this evening. So who is your Greatest Britain?
So I have chosen a brilliant footballer, Southend United, called Nathan Ralph, because he is playing his 150th match for Southend United tomorrow. And he is captain of the team. He has taken us all through huge troubles, and he's a great Briton.
Good stuff. OK, great start. Go on, then.
You're going to be shocked by me saying President Biden for enabling the US CIA and military to destabilise the Assad government, ensuring that Israel can capture land in Syria and build a greater Israel, and also put a message out to China and Russia, you are done. Because with Syria gone down, he's changed the whole of the Middle East, bigger than what happened with Constantinople.
Oh, wow, OK, all right, go on then.
Also, my honorary Great Britain of the Week is Giselle Pellico for her domineering strength, and who would be my Times Person of the Year, despite Donald Trump's sort of immense political return. But she's I think, a shining light to women all over the world who've been through abuse, and should be lauded properly.
Yeah, OK, I'll give it to Giselle, I think, for the Greatest Britain. Honorary, of course. There we go. Who's your Union Jackass, please?
Got to be Rachel Reeves this week. I mean, she's punished the pensioners, she's taken on, she's ruining our farmers, and now crashing the economy. Second month on the trot that we're contracting.
Yes, it's almost like maybe she wasn't entirely truthful on her CV, isn't it? But anyway, go on, who's yours?
OK, I like good, clean food, and I don't like the idea of Arla injecting Bovar into cows to stop them burping. I'm sorry, that is just unacceptable.
You're balking at that. Is it because... What is it you're balking at? I think you don't agree
the
with
science seems to say that it's all gone by the time the milk comes out. I don't drink milk anyway. It's a load of, No, I wouldn't be getting involved.
Yeah,
exactly.
We have DeLonghi coffees instead.
The Grand Old Duke of York, Prince Andrew, because the list is endless, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It is a good one. I mean, I am going to give it to Rachel Reeves.
That's the first time you've chosen my jackass.
First of many, possibly. Right, look, it's been a rip-roaring show tonight. Thank you very, very much, everybody. Thank you for all the fun. Headliners are up next for an hour of fantastic news-filled fun. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend out there. All the very best as you build up to Christmas. I'll see you on Monday at 9 p.m. Take care.
the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, welcome to your latest Met Office weather update here on GB News. If you feel like you've not seen the sun all week, brighter skies for many tomorrow. We should see a little bit of blue sky. The sky's likely to be back to grey by Sunday, however, but then it will be milder. We do have a weather front tracking south. That is trying to push away all the cloud, and it's doing so across Scotland and Northern Ireland tonight. That will allow it to turn quite chilly. It's bringing a little bit of rain over Northern England, North Wales, patchy rain and drizzle further south, quite murky over the hills as well, misty conditions, but all that cloud again keeping temperatures above freezing in the south, whereas we will see some pockets of frost over Northern England and eastern Scotland. A few showers coming in on that brisk wind as well, but generally that cloud will continue to drift southwards. So yes, first thing, still pretty drab over East Anglia and southern England. A little bit of rain here and there, but nothing too heavy. It is going to get brighter. Already though, by 7, 8 o'clock, we'll see breaks in the cloud over Wales, northern England. Fine start for much of Northern Ireland. Just a few showers on the north coast. A few showers filtering in over northern Scotland. A bit of snow mixed in with those, but only really over the tops of the mountains. And then as we go through the day, as I say, many places will see sunny spells. The showers actually tending to fade over North Wales and western Scotland, and the cloud finally breaking up across East Anglia in the southeast. So yes, you should see a bit of sunshine here after what's been a very gloomy week. Meanwhile, it will then turn cloudy and soggy across the far northwest with a breeze picking up here. Temperature-wise, single digits, so still a chilly feel, but with a bit of sunshine. That makes such a difference, and it's certainly looking milder on Sunday. The cloud is back, a grey day for many. Rain and drizzle over hills and around coasts in the west, and it could turn very wet across northwest Scotland by the end of Sunday. Also quite windy here on Sunday, and some gusty winds over northern England too, so be aware of that. But despite the wind and the cloud, it will be a lot milder on Sunday.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway. What